Hello, YouTube, and welcome to another episode of the In Your Head podcast. I am your host, as always, Jesse, and with me on the couch today, comedian Paul Carson. How are you, Paul?
I'm good, Jesse. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm glad to have you on here. I see you around High Note a lot. I mean, it's always good seeing good comedians and having great people on here, and that's why I had to invite you on. Oh, come on.
You flatterer.
Well, the first thing I wanted to know before we even started was I wanted to know how long you've actually been doing comedy.
Since I was 18, so like senior year of high school, but not regularly at all. Like, I'd write a whole set, and I'd do that 5 minutes, and then I'd write a whole nother 5 minutes and go like 2 or 3 weeks later. So I didn't really get into a groove until I'd say about half a year ago. I started going like 4 or 5 times a week, and that has gotten so much better just working material.
So yeah, so that's pretty much while I was at High Note, I've seen you start showing up. So that's when I started seeing you show up there. And so what other places do you usually go to?
I used to go to the Northeast Comedy Cabaret.
Okay.
That's also Wednesday nights, but I switched to High Note. Don't want to.
I appreciate it.
Pay bridge tolls and
that too.
I love the people. But yeah,
I would hope that coming to see us at High Note is higher than just not paying. Oh man, do I want to pay? No, I'll pay bridge tolls. Fuck those guys. That it's.
No, I do like the group at High Note a lot.
All right, cool.
More than like Northeast. Don't want to talk shit, but like it's a depressing vibe a little bit. But good people. Just High Note's got a bigger crowd and fun people to be around. So
there you go. So people watching this, there you go. It's incentive. Get out here. It's a good time. We promise. You heard it from him. So
Premier Mike in South Jersey.
We were rated the #1 date spot in South Jersey at one point
really?
by a magazine. I can't remember. I don't quote me on this, guys. I know it was something along those lines, but it was a long time ago. Before my time there, and it was like they called it a #1 date spot, and it was
date spot. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if I would take a date.
Yeah,
that open mic.
That would be
the tap room's a good date spot. It is. It's great food, great bar, great atmosphere. I don't know if I'd take a date to an open mic.
Yeah, that takes balls. Like, especially if you're performing. Like,
no.
You could eat shit on any given night of the week, and it'd just be like, oh, that relationship would be like, yeah, we're both ashamed to be with me.
Well,
how do you think I feel? I live in this body. This sucks.
Although that's a good way to get a good relationship going, like a second date. Go like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this with you, and if she hangs around and eats shit, you keep that girl, man. That's what I'm. That's not.
That's true. Like,
it's a good litmus test. If she hangs around, she's like, I do like this guy. He's going up on stage. He's doing it. That's got to say something. So that's more than a lot of people.
You're into gentlemen who eat shit. I mean...
Oh, yeah, that coprophagia thing is not...
Is that the official term for it?
Yes, and I only know that because of Rick and Morty. I do not study these things, folks. There's probably a lot of Rick and Morty fans who would have known that, but one of the scenes in one of the episodes in the 3rd season, they went to a family counselor / coprophagia counselor.
I saw that.
Yeah, that was what it was. And
you guys here for eating poo, too?
Yep. You could see it right on her thing. Yep, that's what it is, right on her door. So. And if you have any friends or relatives who also are trying to stop eating poo, please give them my card. Yeah, that's not a sentence I've ever really used.
If I had $1 for every time... Yeah, never mind.
Would you have a lot of dollars?
I'd have $7.
Okay, cool. That will save that for later. So before we start this, as we start every show, I always bring up the statute of initiation. So I'm hoping you can bring a story from your past that you might not be so proud of that you can share with myself and the audience.
I can. It's not really illegal. I know some of the other guests have done.
No, we're trying to drop that, I think.
Okay.
So we're going away from that. That's why I just said kind of a story that... But.
Okay, this is more just like a thing that reflects poorly on me as a person.
Okay.
So, it starts off slow and kind of just builds. It's a story about a lie I told. I was in this class about a year ago. It was an immigrant voices class that was basically supposed to teach you empathy and a little bit about the immigrant or the refugee experience.
Okay.
So my teacher assigned us this 300-page or 300-word essay, just write about your family's immigration story to America. I didn't know mine, and I kind of procrastinated on it, but I was banking on them not knowing my family's immigration story either. So I just decided I'd make one up. So I wrote this quick little story about like how my great grandparents were fleeing World War One. Like they all bullshit. This is a completely fake story. I just made up this super dramatic story about how they lived in the Alsace-Lorraine region of like an area between Germany and France. And World War One was approaching, and they had to flee. So I made the story centered around my great grandma's sauerkraut slicer, which she probably didn't have. But what a sauerkraut slicer is like it's this long wooden board with like a razor blade on it that you can like slide cabbage up and down.
And she actually had one.
In the story.
Oh, okay. I'm just because I figured if you knew what one was, you'd seen it or used it, and that's why.
I actually like my parents. I think got one. I don't even know where they got one. So we do have one in my house. So I figured. Okay. That's going to be the star of my story.
All right.
Kind of like a focal point. So my story was she loved to cook, and leaving, like this was my little poetic thing. Like I said, when she left and had to flee, leaving behind her pots and pans was like leaving behind her own children. So really tugging at the heartstrings. So I wrote this story about how she had to go on this ocean voyage on a ship, and how she only could have one suitcase, so she snuck on her sauerkraut slicer, and they took the voyage to America. So I brought this story into class, and I thought, okay, I'll just hand this in, and that'll be the end of it. I was wrong. Very, very wrong. Sorry, I'm going to have to sneeze.
No. I'm glad you did that away from the mic.
Yeah. Just get those gross
And you're welcome, headphone users.
Just make all the gross sounds, just like turn it into ASMR.
Oh, I'm sure it would just blow the mic out and just scream in their headphones. I'm sure they're thanking you right now.
I hope you don't get like a subculture of people who are just here for the noises.
I don't know. If that's the case, I might have to stop doing this.
What if it becomes super lucrative? It's a
niche market, but probably not the kind I'm looking for.
Okay, so anyway,
so you hand in this well-written story,
and teacher says break up into groups. We're gonna workshop these with classmates. So I tell this story to my classmates. It kills, absolutely kills. Like they're like, wow, what an amazing story. Tell us more about the ocean voyage. What was it like? That sounds hard. And I was like, oh yeah, super. It was so terrible. Like people died on it and shit. Like, like just playing to the crowd and just growing this lie from like a seed. Like I thought every step of the way it was going to be the end of it, but like, so I tell them how like terrible this ocean voyage is, how like they got through it. And my teacher's like, I hope you were listening to each other and like the feedback you got, because next week this has to be 2,000 words.
Oh.
So I workshop the story. I get it up to 2,000 words, really stress how hard the ocean voyage was, how hard it was to leave behind her pots and pans and stuff. And I also bring in a new element of how like she's passed the sauerkraut slicer on to my grandma, who passed it on to my mom, and how this is a direct quote, it serves as a bridge between generations and it connects me to my great grandma and my German roots. So I really go all out for this shit, just trying to hit the word limit on this, and the lie is just growing and growing and growing at this point.
God, I wish you were around during my college days. I really could have learned from you, man.
Every assignment I do that has to have some kind of interview or outward interaction, I just completely make up. Like, I've done so many interviews where, like, this is a little bit of a tangent. I had to do this one thing that was about, like, campus involvement, and we had to take pictures of ourselves doing things around campus. Me and my buddies, like, on the last night, this is a recurring theme, like, I do everything last minute. They caught me just walking out of the dorm with a soccer ball dressed in a soccer outfit because I needed to take a picture of myself doing intramural sports. So, like, they decided, they laughed and, like, they wanted to be a part of it. So we all went out just into the middle of, like, this field at, like, midnight and took a picture of us, like, pointing at a soccer ball. Just like, yo, we do intramural soccer. So all of my school projects are bullshit.
and are done very, very last minute.
Yes. So I write this 2,000 word thing, stretching for details, talk about like how the sauerkraut slicer is a big part of my relationship with my grandma, and like how she insists we speak German whenever she comes over to make sauerkraut. She doesn't speak German. We've never made sauerkraut ever. I'm just playing on the German stereotypes at this point.
This hole's getting real deep.
It's getting deeper, and it's all could have been prevented with a little bit of honesty or some research into my family's real immigration story. So I bring in this 2,000 word essay. My teacher says, okay, read them to the class. We read them to the class. It does great. They love it. She's like, okay, I'm glad you guys put so much effort into that, because I've decided that we're going to turn this into our final project. 50% of the grade. What we're going to do is we're going to turn it into videos that we make where you narrate your story, you put it over music, and you have a picture in the background. But first, you need to schedule a one-on-one with me, and we'll workshop it even more. So I schedule this one-on-one with her. We do the workshop, and she's really interested in the aspect of like my relationship with my grandma and how much this sauerkraut slicer connects us. She's like, so you speak German with your grandma? I'm like, yeah, so much German.
Oh, no.
All the time. She's like, maybe you could incorporate some of the stuff that you say, like some German sentences, and that could really bring us into the story. So like, fast forward to making the video, there are a shitload of German sentences in this thing. Like I have like quotes from my grandma. She'll say like, "Das hat zu deiner Urgroßmutter gehört," which means like that belonged to your great grandmother. Like she doesn't know German, I do in real life. So I put together this video. I narrate this whole story. I put it over dramatic piano music.
Oh man.
For the background picture, my mom drew a picture of her grandma when she was little. Other side of the family. Chuck that in there. That's fine. Wrong person, but I just pan up and down this hand-drawn like picture on parchment. It's a really good picture. Just dramatically zoom into the face and zoom out and stuff. I make this video, present it to the class. Absolutely kills. Everybody loves it. I get 100. I thought, okay, that's done. Thank goodness. This lie is over.
Something tells me it's not.
But wait, there's more. So I think it's done. Half a year later, I get an email from that teacher. She says, hey, Ted, you know, like TED Talks and stuff.
Oh, no.
They're doing a tour of like universities as like a series that they're doing. It's called TEDx or TED by whatever.
Yeah.
And they're doing a TED by URI. And guess what the theme is? It's immigrant experiences. Oh. And I sent them your video, and they loved it. So meet with me. I want to talk a little bit more about it. So I'm faced with the moral dilemma of like, do I come clean? I already got the grade and just be a shitty person to her, or do I like keep it going? I went with the latter.
Oh, no.
So I met with her.
Please tell me this video's online and I can post a link to it at the bottom of this.
The video is on my computer, and I can give it to you. It's a very short, abridged version of the video, but like it's the one that I showed to my class. So I meet with her. She's like, like they loved the video, but you have to come in and audition. Here's a sheet. Because there were like scholarships on the line. Like if you got selected, you could get like a scholarship or something. So you had to sign this sheet for TED that basically says everything in here is like legit. It's real. We can't have people lying on our platform. So I signed that. I figure like, okay, shit. So like the audition, so I'm panicking a little bit. The audition is in like 2 weeks. So you have to like talk about your video and stuff. And I find out the audition is just a one-day thing. So if I can get out of that audition, I don't have to do TED. So I'm thinking of like ways that I can plausibly get out of this to my teacher and to them. So I'm not a fraud for signing this thing. This is fairly recent, so the statute of limitations is still iffy, but like, well,
You didn't really change a lot of the names to protect the innocent either. You did mention Ted, and you mentioned your university, so I don't know how much of this I'm going to have to go back and knock out.
Oh,
so.
you're good. You're good. It's fine. They don't care. I didn't. So anyway, I figured, how do I get out of this? I figure, okay, I could be sick, but like if you're just like, I'm sick and I email her, it's kind of lame and like last minute Bailey. So I like figure I have to make this believable. FaceTime would be more believable like the morning of if I'm sick. And I figured, okay, so I have to look sick. The best way to look sick is to be sick. What makes me sick? Eating fish always makes me sick, like white fish. That is disgusting to me. And doing sprints. So the day of,
Oh no.
I wake up, eat some fish, do some sprints, feel terrible, FaceTime, get out of it.
Wow.
And it all worked out perfectly.
Oh my God. I have a lot of questions about this story. Holy cow.
So don't lie,
I mean,
kids.
yeah, I mean, a lot of these stories, whenever one of these stories comes up, there's always little lessons to be learned in these stories. I mean, some of them are just fun, some of them are silly little stories, and that one definitely has a something to be learned aspect in it. And I mean, yeah, you could see as it just got deeper, there was no way to just come right back out.
Yeah.
Like there was no easy way to bail out of it. It's
just
wow.
escalated and escalated. But I am in no legal limbo. Nobody's feelings got hurt. I'm a piece of shit, and the viewers.
Well, I mean, it's a weird story, but at least you didn't do the talk.
Oh yeah, there was no way.
Yeah,
like in my mind, I was gonna I wasn't gonna do that because like I wasn't like I would feel so shitty like if I had gotten a scholarship like that would have been wrong taking it from. I mean, the whole thing is kind of wrong, but like
right. But you can go up there and talk and make this elaborate, great story. But if you take a scholarship from somebody who
deserves it, that wouldn't be okay with
although
me.
To be honest, if you look back at that, you're getting a scholarship for the writing and for making this beautiful story. I could have the greatest immigrant story in the world of how my parents or grandparents or whoever came over here, and I could have the greatest story, and I might not be able to tell it. And to be fair, if you told that great a story that your teacher and Ted and all the people that are in there looked at this and went, holy hell, this is great. This is a great story. If you told that great of a story, that says something alone. That I mean, that there should be a scholarship of some kind in that. I mean,
and if you like do enough mental gymnastics, this story is more my story than it is anybody else is telling a story about somebody who's not them. This is purely my story. This is my immigrant story, my story about immigration.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I love it. It's a cool story. I mean, it does say a lot about about the human condition too, because you put yourself in a spot that there was nothing. You're like, oh man, I can't get out of it, and you kept digging and digging, and it got more and more interesting. And I'm not gonna lie, I loved it. So, wow. I mean, I'm sure. I'm hoping that the viewers love this one because this is one of our best ones. I love that story. A lot of the stories that have involved, drinking or weird nights and stuff like that, they're fun. But this is like true. This is like a real good, because like I said, I want to change this up to take away the legality a little bit, but maybe something that's you might not be so proud
just
of.
Morally ambiguous.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's done things they're not terribly proud of. You left somebody somewhere. I think that was like Ramon's story, I think, from episode 10.
His was mushroom oriented, I believe.
Yeah, there was some drugs involved, and there was somebody they didn't like, and the drug use aside, but then it's like, well, he wasn't proud of the part where he just left the person there and was like, screw that, we're out. And, and that's kind of what I'm talking about this, is the kind of stuff where your story in particular, that's the that's the benchmark now, I think, as
when
far
I was
as
trying to think of a story, like I don't have, like I literally I'm the only person I know who waited until they were 21 to have alcohol. So I just waited until I had my first drink 4 months ago, literally, and I had never done anything drug or alcohol related. So I was struggling to think of a story along those lines. So yeah, I guess thank you for not making it like an illegal story.
Right,
Because I
yeah.
haven't done too many naughty things. Like,
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of changing it, because some people, I mean, it's little things. I mean, sometimes little things, like the baseline of the story. I don't know if I've ever told the way this baseline of this question came about when I started this podcast. I think it's about time, since I revealed some other stuff on the last podcast with Alex Perlman. I think it's about time that I kind of reveal this one. So we were on Noah's podcast at Plus Two Comedy, and they had a guest on. Guest was a nice enough guy, you know, nothing against him, but he was a tough interview, and that happens. Sometimes it's hard to get the give and take, and the guy wasn't giving up anything. The guy wouldn't tell him anything about his stuff that he was on there for. It was a tough interview. So they were really looking for stuff, and he said to him, well, you know, they were just trying to get anything out of him, and it was Halloween. They said, okay, well, what's your favorite candy? What's the last candy you had? The guy goes, I can't really talk about that. Now,
what?
See, that's kind of what we did. Yeah, that was like, so I was producing this at the time. You know, I do their video work, and I'm behind the camera for them during most of their videos. So, I'm looking at this, going, like, watching this, going, I have no idea what's happening right now. I had no idea why he was like why he wouldn't say anything. But the more I thought about it, I thought, you know, what if it was something embarrassing? Oh, he ate, like, gummy penises at a party. You know, gummy penises. Okay, funny. But then I thought, what if it was one of those Kinder eggs?
Oh, those are illegal. I
Yeah,
love those, too.
exactly.
I miss those so bad.
And that's what I said. I said, what if it was something that's, like, marginally illegal? Nobody would care. Like, oh, I got Kinder eggs. Nobody gives a shit.
TSA, like, takes that shit seriously. Like,
yeah, they do. But, you know, if you get some imported, you buy them on Amazon,
right,
they're not going to care. And that's why I'm like, what if it was something like that? And that's kind of the idea of where it came from, was something that you weren't really proud of. You did something kind of illegal, and that's kind of where that whole thing came from, folks. So there's a little peek behind the curtain.
Now that you bring up Kinder eggs, like, I have had... That is something illegal. I've been part of, like, Kinder egg trafficking before. Like, my family lived in Germany, and, like, that's where they make those things. And, like, literally, we have friends smuggle them in. Like, they're called Kinder Überraschungs there, which is Kinder Surprises, which is a lot scarier sounding than egg.
Yeah,
so
Kinder egg just sounds like such a neat little candy thing. Yeah,
but yeah, there are a lot of, like, chokeable pieces in there, which is why I think they're illegal. I don't...
Yeah, well, the rule in America is you cannot now. I looked this up because I was wondering, why are Kinder eggs illegal before I did this whole thing. You cannot have something non-edible in a product that doesn't contribute to the consumption of that product. So you look at, like, a lollipop comes on a stick, but that stick is part of eating it. So even though it's in the product, it's allowed to be there even though it's inedible. But when you put something inedible in something that's edible, that's not part of eating it, it's out. And that's it. And that's where that rule comes from, and that's why.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's been on the books in America since, like, 1910. Like, it's an old rule. I might be wrong on the year. Sorry, YouTube, but it's been on the books forever, since, like, they had to put stuff on because people were putting weird shit in products. Like, because nobody was responsible if, you know, your grandmom's sauerkraut slicer, one of the blades fell off and ended up in somebody's product, and they would be like, oh, well, it's not illegal. So you got a metal blade in your shit. Who cares? And they'd be like, it's not illegal. Well, now they had to make it illegal. So when that happened, somebody was accountable. So that's where the problem. And it's kind of hung around, and so Kinder eggs are illegal. So.
Now, if Kinder really, like, the top brass believed in their product, they would have taken one for the team and just been like, I ain't no bitch. This is part of it. Just, like, eating the toy. Like, delicious.
They've got new ones here now in America. If you've seen them, they're similar.
They're a lot. Yeah, they're like they're egg shaped. So, like,
yeah,
and it's like just like a Nutella with a stick thing, right?
Yeah, and you, like, dip. There's, like, some of these weird little chocolate, like, hazelnut things in there, and they're good.
They are good.
I'm not gonna lie, they're really good. But
they're not as tasty as the toys, though.
No, the toys are great, man.
Kinder, you bitches.
Yeah, I don't want to. Come on, it's America. It's not Kinder. It's America. It's us. Come on, man. Get your shit together, U.S. This shit's been on the books for 100 years. Although then again, if somebody can choke on something, there's going to be a lawsuit. So that's the problem with the U.S.
That's true.
But we don't need to get into all that about our litigious society. So.
This becomes a very woke podcast.
Some of them have. Some of them very much have. But
welcome back to Woke Bays with Jesse. Today's Bay is Paul. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry.
No. I don't do a lot of editing, but I think that's going to have to go. That's going to get cut. Sorry, folks, you're not going to see that. I don't know. But I do want to add something new to the podcast. I thought about adding something a little bit new, a little bit more head-like. Yeah, so nobody's seen this. You haven't seen it. I haven't given you a heads up on this one. So this is the first episode we're doing it. I want to do a little bit of a word association with each of my guests. So I got 7 words. I'm going to give you 7 words, and then I want you to give me the first word that comes to mind when you hear that word. So I'm going to give everybody the 7 words, and I want to see how people's responses change. And
are you doing the same 7 words, or
switch? It's going to be. I'm going to switch up the words, probably the order, but it's going to be the same 7 words.
Okay,
I want to see people's. Yeah. So let's see. So the first word is night.
Day.
Okay. Car.
Crash.
Okay. Sport.
Great Gatsby.
Okay. That's a word. It's a.
Sorry.
It's a book. No, it's a book. It's fair.
It says old sport a lot.
That's fair.
It's a very unathletic answer. Literature.
Comedy.
Fun.
Okay. Water.
Asphyxiation. I think I messed that word up.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Work.
Dance.
Okay. And the last one, time.
Clock.
Okay, cool. So that's the 7 that I want to ask people to see the different answers that each person gives. So it does see a little bit into each person's head. So car and crash. Now that I wonder why.
I'm just going. I don't know why that was the first.
That just
thing.
came in there.
That
okay.
just came in there. I don't know.
Because some of these I can definitely see some questions as far as like you explained the sport thing, but like the water and asphyxiation. I take it you're not a big swimmer.
I saw the James Bond movie last night where like the girl drowns in the elevator, and I was just thinking like that's got to be the worst way to die, like just drowning.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that just always gets. I don't know. It just.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. No, you don't have to explain it to me. I'm totally with you. I'm a Pisces who's just terrified of water. Well, not terrified of water, but the thought of drowning isn't exactly prime on my list.
I don't know if you can see on here. It's got the astrological signs. You said you're a Pisces?
No. Those are spices.
Oh, those are
spices. It's a Bombay sapphire glass.
Oh,
is what that is. Actually,
I'm an idiot.
No, from a distance I can see what you're saying though. Yeah, they look like little stars and stuff.
I thought that was a crab, but you're.
I don't know what goes into gin. I know it's like a million different things that goes into gin. I don't touch the stuff, but the glasses were nice. So
yeah, but you're a Pisces. Does that mean anything? Like I'm so ignorant on all the astrological signs.
I don't know. They say Pisces like water. I'm like, no. I mean, I like the beach, but I'm not a big swimmer. Like, I don't have to go out in the water. I'll hang around in the water, but I'm not going to be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to swim out to there. No, I don't see a need. I don't see a need because that same thought that you just said, the thought of drowning, sucks.
If I swim there and then come back, I could cut 2 steps out of the process by staying here.
Yeah, this is a great place. I'm coming back here anyway. I'm staying right here, and I can just dig a hole and sit in the water. That's fine. There's plenty of water underneath the sand too. So that's what I used to do as a kid at the beach. I don't know what you did as a kid at the beach, but all I would do is I would get a shovel and I would dig a goddamn hole. I would dig a hole as big as this couch and table. And just dig it as deep down as it could before it just started to fill up with too much water, and then I would just sit in the hole.
It's a good pastime.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it says a little bit about me. Everybody else built up at the beach. I went down. So, I don't know. I would leave these giant holes, like 6-foot holes in the middle of the beach. I don't know how many people have died in the holes that I've dug. And I'm sorry if that did happen. But I'm hoping because I was a minor that I'm not being held accountable for that, so... But yeah, I'll probably put these word associations up on the Facebook page and put it there, so to compare and see where everybody kind of goes with it and see what people think. And
you got Pisces, you got water. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know what my astrological. I think I'm like a Libra. Or did they add one?
They added one. Okay. Yeah, and that really makes it all confusing. I didn't change, so I don't know.
I don't know if I did or. The number of tramp stamps that probably became wrong.
I could see that being the biggest concern about like why this no, my tramp stamp. That's if that's your biggest concern about your astrological sign changing. Got some issues that need to be worked out.
Just the number of regrets that arose. Oh, there's a cat.
Yep, there it is. Hi, cat. Told you we'd get a meow on camera. Yep.
That was like on command. That was cool. Like for those of you at home, that's not a soundbite. This is real.
That's a cat. Yeah, we're real here. I don't do editing. I told you that, folks. Yeah, that's a cat. She shows up when we talk too long, and then she bothers me, and then she wanders off, probably to eat. So, so anyway, on to the proper stuff. So we did mention earlier comedy. About a lot of people I've had on here have been comics. Because I spend most of my time at High Note. So, I've met a lot of comics. So most of the guys I've known, it's been great to watch and see different comics grow up over, and watch you come from, like you said, you're first starting to take it serious until now. And it's been awesome to really watch you grow and watch other comics grow. It's one of my favorite things about being at High Note and being a part of it, because I'm just hanging out and watching great comics. And this week, like, you had a great set. It was, I haven't seen you on stage, but you came together and you brought a great set, and it was so cool to to not see you in so long and see you kill on a night that was kind of like,
appreciate that.
But it was cool. And you've been a great up and coming comic, so I mean, I'm glad I could have you on. Like, I know,
I'm glad to be here.
Were you in the South Jersey Stand Up Championships?
No, I had to go back to school,
Oh.
or else I would have. I wish I could have seen people, because it sounded like a bunch of people did pretty well. Congrats to Hancock. I haven't gotten to see you and congratulate you in person yet, but like, good job.
Yeah, he did well. He was great. There was a lot of great comics out there. I think you would have fared pretty well, but yeah, school kind of comes first.
I was super excited to get back, like, for spring break for this week, because like I haven't performed since winter break. Like, I just go, and there's not like a lot of opportunities that, like, there's slam poetry mics and stuff, but like some of the more jarring stuff that like comics can handle would not go well on like an extremely liberal, like, slam poetry college campus type.
Yeah,
like it's a snap if you appreciate like what they're saying type of place. So like that's the vibe there, and I don't have a car to go anywhere, so
yeah,
I just write.
I can see what you mean. That makes sense, because if you're out at that, it's just not the same reception. It's not the same feel. So I mean,
there's something to be said for performing in front of audiences that you're uncomfortable in front of, and then there's like just masochism where you hate yourself and want to, like, it just, it's going to be a terrible night.
Yeah. So what so outside of comedy, do you have any other hobbies? Because I know you didn't go to a sport when I brought up sport. So was there any particular? Obviously, your intramural college activities are rather limited.
I actually, I'm on a club team. Like, we're trying to become a varsity team. I'm on the University of Rhode Island powerlifting team.
Okay, cool.
So that takes up a lot of my time, like training and stuff. I have to do like 2.5 hours a day. And we do meets and stuff. It's a fun subculture, kind of like comedy. Like, you get people. It's a more supportive community than I thought it would be. Like, you think like powerlifter, you think like kind of douchey. You think I don't know, just like anybody like who spends that much time in the gym. But like,
well, you think about the people that you complain about at the gym.
Exactly.
That's who you're probably thinking of when you say that.
Yeah, but everybody's super nice and like supportive, and it's a cool community. So you do meets and stuff, and I'm actually going to Texas in like a month or so for a meet. So that it gives you opportunities to travel. So it's always fun to meet a bunch of people that way. But it's like one of those fringe, like it's sport/activity things. Like, it doesn't have a ball. So like,
yeah, I get the same thing from playing disc golf. People are like, it's not really a sport. I was like, I know. I
want to try that so bad.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a good hobby, and I'm surprised that more colleges aren't picking it up, because there's local disc golf courses everywhere, and it's so much cheaper to get into it. I mean, you can take a bag of discs and go play. All courses around here are free. So it's not like I've pretty much given up on regular golf, because I'm tired of being like, oh, cool, we're going to go play golf. There goes 4 hours, $65. And I'm like, I can go play disc golf anytime I want for nothing. And just go to the course and play disc golf.
Bag of discs.
Yeah, that's really it. You have a bag of different discs.
You can't be dyslexic playing that, though. No. Then you got a bag of dicks in your hand, and it's just an issue.
Yeah, I think I've heard that said at least a few times. Oh man, did you see my dick my disc? Yeah, it's over in the bushes, and I don't know where your dick's
Get
at.
out of here, tiger.
I haven't seen that. Yeah. He's got a real problem. His dick's getting lost all over the place.
He's back though now. He's doing well from what I've heard.
Yeah, I heard he was in the one tournament, and I wasn't really following him. I'm like,
I can't watch golf. It's aggressively boring. Like, I'd watch professional mini golf if that was a thing. I'd watch that.
yeah, that hasn't been on television in a long time.
Wait, was that a thing?
It was on ESPN ages ago. Like back in the 90s, I stumbled across one because I was like, ESPN didn't have 24-hour sports. I mean, they ran 24 hours, but they'd be like, oh, we got to fill this. And then it'd be like, oh, it's midnight, 1 o'clock. What is it? Mini golf.
I would so watch that. Like, I would watch the shit out of that.
Yeah, it's competitive. It's a competitive thing, but I wouldn't, like you said, I wouldn't call it a sport.
Yeah. So it's kind of like in the area between sport and activity, strenuous activity.
Yeah. It's mental, though.
It is.
I think. Sports like that, like bowling, because I used to bowl, it's mental. And when you have that moment, when you have to do the thing and be precise and under pressure, like bowling a 300, you're rattled. And it's like performance-enhancing drugs for that are things like anti-anxiety drugs. That would be what I would assume would be a great bowling PED, because if I could take that, my bowling average would shoot through the roof. Because when there's stress on the line and a shot that has to be made, or a 300, I mean, yeah, you could use that. And I could see that in golf, mini golf, and you're like standing over a putt, and it's just you and the quiet. And that would get to you when it's that, that pressure would rattle me. So.
Do you think Adderall would help or hinder, like, laser focus? And that would, I mean, I'm sure it would drive up the anxiety, but like up the focus. So,
I would think. See, if it raised the anxiety, I think that's what makes it hard for me, because I know I have anxiety issues. So, like when I tried to bowl my 300, and I was standing there looking down the lane with the ball in my hand, I couldn't see. My eyes were blurry as hell. It's not like they were water. Like, my eyes were shaking. I was blurry. I was a mess. But if I could have something that was anti-anxiety, I'd be like, okay, then that's it. You're ready. Your body is comfortable and it's ready to go. And I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Give me that.
Is there any type of like drug testing for bowling? Like, do they do that?
I don't know. I've never really heard of any banned, like anybody's been banned for PEDs in bowling.
That would be such a funny, like, that would be a knock on any bowler who did that and still lost.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wondered about the Russian curling team recently. Now, see, well, no, but that's what confused me, because he got, if anybody knows, this is going to air probably in the beginning of April, so if anybody remembers the Winter Olympics, Russians had huge problems. The whole Russian, everybody got knocked out. Well, then they said, okay, let's let them play. We'll let them play, because there's a lot of guys that weren't doing things, and why take it away from them? And so 2 Russian curlers got pulled for PEDs, but they weren't the kind like we were just talking about. They were for steroids. Now, most every other winter sport, I can get it. Skiing, please. If you're doing biathlon or skiing, snowboarding, anything, yeah, hell yeah, take steroids. But curling, that's a focus sport. I wouldn't think you'd need steroids to slide the rock, because it's going to go regardless. So
you're on ice, like.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that myself, but
that made me laugh quite a bit when I saw that story.
Yeah, I would have figured they would have used what we were talking about and just gone with something to keep them level, but I guess not. All the Russians had a lot of wicked problems with that. So.
Because what were they? They were like the Olympic athletes from Russia or something,
yeah,
right?
It was like OAR was on the logo. Because when I didn't know, like, I heard Russia was out, and then I watched a match of something, and I was like, what the hell's OAR? What is that? I had no idea what it was, and then these guys all dressed in black show up, and I'm like, oh, okay. So they play under the Olympic flag, and if they won a gold medal, they would just get the Olympic theme song. They wouldn't get their flag. They wouldn't get the Russian anthem or anything like that. So it was,
I think a real punishment would have just been like the Benny Hill theme playing whenever they won. Just trivialize the whole thing, just undermine their whole accomplishment. Like, I know you've been working your whole life for this, but
no, you could have rickrolled them.
Oh, that would have been good.
Like, as soon as they're up there and you just hear doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and he's on the flag as it's getting raised, doing his little dance as he's that would have been way better to take it away from him. The Olympic committee's like, fuck them. We don't want it. I mean, it's a shame because there was a lot of good athletes,
Mhm.
and to have the entire bunch of Russian athletes get knocked out when a lot of them didn't do anything,
Yeah.
I think that was kind of a brash move. But
Yeah, I guess the state-sponsored thing was like really egregious, like to have an official steroid thing sponsored by Russia.
yeah, well, at least a lot of them got to compete, and
That's true.
That's good for the people who put 4 years of work in. You know,
Mhm.
like if you were training for the Olympics, I mean, you're looking at what you're training for. If you're going to Texas, if that only happens once every 3 or 4 years,
Mhm.
and you trained and trained and trained, and then they said, you know, well, you can't compete because that guy cheated.
Yeah.
You'd be pretty pissed off.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's...
I think they handled it well, all things considered.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm glad. I don't watch a lot of the Olympics because there's too much figure skating on television. It's what they air all the time, and I'm tired of it. I'm glad curling's making its way on television, but I can't watch as much figure skating because I'm just like, this is not exciting. It's like watching golf. I love playing it, can't watch it.
I think curling was a thing that people like jokingly watched at first, and then like ironically, like they started to like it, and like now people are just like openly admitting that they enjoy it.
Yeah, because it's better than all the alternatives. We need to get biathlon on more. Although
I like that. Is that with the guns?
Yeah, where they shoot. But the problem with that is it's so slow for so long.
Mhm.
It's just cross country skiing for a while, and then they shoot. It's like you look forward to the shooting, but when you're just look, they're skiing for 20 miles. It's why I don't watch track and field. I always joke with my wife saying track and field is like watching slow NASCAR. You're just making left turns really slowly. So
it's like NASCAR, but we got rid of the cars. Like
yeah, it's not car. That'll work. The not car track and field. So do you have any? I know you've been. Well, this is coming out in April, so I know your school year might be wrapping down. Do you have any shows coming up or anything like that you might be plugging that might be after school wraps up when you're back in the area for the summer?
In terms of shows, no. But I got a sketch group that I'm a part of that we make videos. It's called Wow Great Donuts Pal. So we just make like sketches and stuff and we post them on YouTube. So that's pretty much all I've got planned out.
Okay. No, yeah, well, I was going to say projects too, stuff like that, but that's perfect. So I'll get a link from you and I'll post that down below in the video. So that'll be down below in the description. So I'll send it to the YouTube page so people can check that out as well. And as always, and hopefully when he comes back in the summer, you can come check him out at High Note on Wednesday nights because he's great to watch. He's a lot of fun. So before I continue on with the rest of this interview, though, I did want to bring up one story which was very interesting, and I wanted to get your.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I wanted to get your opinion on this night because something happened at High Note a while ago, very early in your career, apparently. Well, that was also why I wanted to ask earlier how long you had been doing stand-up because I didn't know how long you had been doing it when this happened, and. So to preface this story, which he knows already what it is, again, he was pretty new and he was doing a set, and it was a harmless set, and it was a good set, but he does a joke about heroin in the middle of the set, and it's an okay joke. I don't think I find it offensive. I don't think anybody I've ever seen found that joke offensive, but apparently a woman found it offensive because her son died of a heroin overdose. She wasn't very happy about it.
No, she was not.
Now, she just kind of voiced it to you, and that's what she said. She just straight up blurted out, "My son died of a heroin overdose. That's not funny," and you just moved on. Now, no, I think the way you handled it was better than I could have even imagined. I would. That's cat, guys. I know that's coming across on the mic. That's the cat. But the way you handled it was amazing because it was being so new. Yeah, you were really new at the time, and you were just like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and moved on. That was it.
It's kind of like a morally ambiguous situation. Basically, what the bit I was doing is like I was talking about how prevalent like anybody who has an interest has been calling themselves like a nerd. So the bit was like if you're into video games, people call themselves a video game nerd. If you're into cars, they call themselves a car nerd. And I said, pretty soon, heroin junkies are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm such a heroin nerd."
Yeah, and the lady,
she didn't like.
Lost herself
I had a few tags that like made it worse and more like offensive to her, I guess. Like,
I get it. Yeah, and but that's the problem, you know. And you're at an open mic though.
Yeah.
And when you're at a mic, if something, people are going to talk about everything, and you have to be ready to hear
Yeah.
what somebody's going to say. You know, what if somebody talks about Christians? Oh, I'm a Christian. It's you can't come into a place like that and have
Exactly.
thin skin. But to see as you being a new comic, just being like, oh, okay, and you weren't rattled, you moved on, and you kept your set going was awesome. It was cool, and I always wondered how you felt about how you handled it and how you felt that went.
That was an interesting night because she had been talking my first bit she didn't like either, and she was like no or something out loud, and I was like, okay, shit, I'll move on. So I went on to the next bit, and then like I looked out in the crowd, I could see she was kind of like teary-eyed, and I was like, oh crap, do you know someone? She's like, yeah, my son. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I felt so bad. Like, I don't have that comic instinct to be like, fuck everyone in the crowd, like you're a heckler. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I feel terrible. So I was like, I'm so sorry. If I had known that, I would never have said that. And then I had like a bit that I did just about being like a shitty person in general. So I figured I'll play the heel, kind of like crap on myself, and then call it a day. So I get off the stage, and then Ryan, the next comic.
No, two comics.
Two
comics later, because I remember exactly how this happened. So this is how I want to defend him in this because of what happened. Now, the woman who was doing this, the next comic that came up was Shane. So some of you might remember him from the earlier episode. Shane Costales. This was back when he was doing comedy before his schedule and work and all that stuff, which is fine. I mean, we miss him at High Note, but you know, it's what happens. So Shane was up next, and the woman in the midst of this was talking out loud. Then she answered her phone.
Oh, yeah.
Her phone rang, and she answered it and started talking very loudly on her phone. Now, I get it when your phone rings. It's happened. You go, oh, and you hang it up. Or you go, I'll call you back. No, she was like, hi. Yeah, hey. I'm at an open mic. Yeah, what's going on with you? Before someone had to come over and you know, be like,
I think
yo.
Ramon was like take that outside.
Yeah. Now, the comic you're speaking of who went next, now this was all during Shane's set, the comic who went next, Ryan, was behind her during this whole thing. He was sitting right there going, are you kidding me? Like, you're just going to tell us what we should do, and you're not going to be polite about being here. So he was furious, and he flew off the handle. And
yeah, he went up, and like I'm not going to get too much into his business, but I think somebody in his family had been like affected by heroin use or something, so he had the moral high ground, and he basically just like tore her a new one, and just said, don't tell us what to talk about. You're at a comedy show. This is what happens. And like, he went in, and like afterwards, like I went up to him because I appreciated the hell out of it. He was like defending me as a comic, and it was like a really cool move from him. So I really, really appreciated that. Like, he went in and said all the things that like I couldn't say. Like, I felt terrible, so I wouldn't have said the things, but he went in and he had the moral high ground. I went up to him afterward and said like, dude, thank you, but like, holy shit, like.
Yeah, well, it upset him, and because like he said, he's like, I have a right to talk about this because I forget who it was, but he's like, my whatever, you know, had died or whatever. It's like, yeah, he's that's his thing. Comedy, for anybody who doesn't know, who's not there, is almost like therapy for a lot of the guys that come out there. Going on stage is like therapy. You get that stuff out. You exercise those demons, those problems,
100%.
and you can talk about them. And now you're going to tell me that I can't go out and talk about the thing that's bothering me. Like, you go to a therapist, I'm going to pay you $140 an hour, and you're going to tell me, look, I don't want you to talk about what happened with your brother who died. I don't want you to talk about your mom abusing you. I don't want you to talk about any of that. That's not why we're here. I'm like, no, that's why I'm paying you $140 an hour. And that's why a lot of guys do it. That's their therapy. You're free to, you're really free to talk about whatever you want at a mic. That's what it is. It's an open forum. I mean, you have really mixed stuff that people want to talk about, and to say that somebody can't talk about one thing or whatever, that would just, you know, it's not fair to anybody. If you don't want to hear it, you know, you shouldn't. And it was a shame, and he was genuinely really upset about it.
I felt so terrible though afterwards. Like, I literally, as she was leaving, I met her in the hallway, apologized, like we hugged it out, and she was actually like a really sweet old lady. But like, that was just like such a crazy night that like, I mean, I feel like experiences like that, like going to mics and like just doing comedy as often as possible, you experience as many shitty things as possible, and then you know how to handle them. So I feel like like experienced comics have just experienced all the shit before, and they know like what to do in each situation. So it's kind of just like a failing up type thing.
You can talk to your mirror and do your set all day,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't know when something happens in the crowd. Now you're like, oh, the mirror's talking back. What do I do? It's all of a sudden different. Like, oh no, the mirror's talking back, or the mirror is not laughing. I thought the mirror would. I heard laughing in my head, and a lot of guys do that. They hear laughing and it's not there. And that's when it gets weird.
That's schizophrenia.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of those. There's a few of those that show up. I'm not gonna lie. So before this whole thing got underway, I gave you the circles. We've decided to call this. I've changed the name up a little bit. We've decided to change this to the full circle test.
Oh, I like
because
that.
it seems like a lot of this stuff comes back, and you see these people's drawings now, and all of a sudden, after everything we've talked about, the drawing kind of comes back to be what it was. So I like this one. Now you used a lot of the space, you used a lot of color. So it's mirrored, unfortunately. So it's it's the other way around, but it works pretty good. So it's not the first stick figures we had.
Okay.
So don't feel bad that they're stick figures. But I do have to ask about the upper left corner. You did a couple stick figures, but then a very realistic looking portrait in almost dot art. And is that somebody in particular, or
that's the son,
okay,
which is a main player in a lot of child's drawings.
Okay.
So I figured I'm grown up now, so that's the son from Teletubbies all grown up. What I imagine that baby and the son would look like. Like, because I don't know if you guys remember the Teletubbies. Like, I still watch it. No, but like they'd have the son just kind of like laughing at the Teletubbies at the end.
It was a little baby, wasn't
yeah,
it? It was like a little tiny itty bitty baby going.
Yeah, in hindsight, it was like creepy as shit. Like they just kind of nobody questioned it. Like none of the Teletubbies were like, that star is talking to us. Like.
Well, there's a lot of things that need to be questioned on Teletubbies if we're going to be honest here. But yeah, that's him. That's the baby all grown up. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh man. And then we get the rainbow and the hat. So now I don't know if I've worn a fedora around you in a long time, and I don't think I've worn one around you. So I was surprised that you went with a fedora as such.
That was nothing personal. I just figured I'd spice up the picture with like a pilgrim or a fedora hat or something.
Oh no, I used to wear fedoras all the time.
Did you really?
I kind of went over the Jeff cap because fedoras got a real bad rap. So I've kind of.
I feel like Jason Mraz kind of pulled them down with his scat music.
Yeah, there's a lot of people I can thank for ruining those. I mean, you look on the internet and it's fat guys who are womanizing pigs. They also did a really great job of making sure that fedoras have a really bad name because every single one of them will be wearing one. I'm like, fuck, I can't wear this now, man. I've been wearing these forever. Now I gotta stop. So no, I was curious. I'm like, yeah, I don't think he ever knew me when I wore fedoras.
But yeah, it's just a little spicy, fancy touch.
I like it. It's cool. And then the jacks.
Yeah, it's you and me. I figured we'd be doing something together. Might as well play jacks.
It's an interesting choice. I was wondering. I'm like, man, I didn't even know if anybody knew what jacks was anymore. I mean, it feels like something that's so, that's like my parents would have played jacks, but
that's something
I barely remember it.
I feel like that's a choking hazard today. Like,
oh god,
call back to the Kinder eggs, like that.
That's what you would get in a Kinder egg, a ball and a couple jacks.
Exactly, like it's just a dangerous toy now. Yeah,
it's a shame, man. We got to bring back jacks and lawn darts. I think that's what we got to do.
Lawn darts.
We got to bring them all back, man. Lawn darts. If you're not bleeding, you're not playing hard enough, right?
We need to weaponize fun.
Damn right, man. Goddamn right.
Like you were telling me before the show how you might be throwing axes at your birthday. That just sounds awesome. That sounds so cool.
But when you grow up and, you're old enough to have a house and do stuff, everyone's like, oh, you have a house and you grow up. No. You shouldn't.
You throw axes. That's what you do.
Well, why would you grow up? Because it's like, I'm just going to grow up. What am I going to do? Sit and read books and be boring? No, I'm going to do all the stuff I want to do. So I'm building currently, anybody who doesn't know me personally, I'm building like an axe throwing target. If you've seen the places that are like the axe throwing where you can go to a place, I'm building a regulation size axe target. It's about 4x5-ish. It's going to be sunk in the ground, concrete, and all that good, lovely stuff. And we're going to throw axes at it, just like a regular axe throwing target, and knives and whatever else we have that we can throw at it, shuriken and all that good crap. But I said, why get old and just be boring? Do shit.
Yeah.
Have fun with your time and have fun with the stuff you do. You got disposable income, use it for something fun, And I'm like, yeah, I could, we still take vacations, we still do stuff, but it's like, why not have some fun with the stuff we want to do? And that's going to lead me to the other thing, because that's why I have an arcade cabinet sitting in the middle of my living room, and which is the exact thing I wanted to get to next. So I ask all my guests, because I am a bit of a gamer, not a gamer nerd. I'm not going to go there. But I'm a bit of a gamer, so I ask all my guests, what is your favorite video game of all time? And if it's a series, you got to knock it down to one, because you can't just say a series. It can be arcade, console.
This is like a really, like, when I was little, we weren't really allowed to have like video games and stuff too much. So what we got were these, like, I think the brand was called like Radica or something. It was like an offshoot of Atari, and they had these sports games that were technically Madden, and it was like a mat you could step on, and you had to like sprint to actually like run, and you had like a football that you had to like throw, and it really wasn't sensitive at all, so you had to like slap the shit out of it to start every play. And I just remember like doing that, and it was John Madden's voice, but like it was a bootleg version, so they only got like 5 sayings that were all drilled into my head, and like some of the sayings were only like loosely applicable to like what you were doing in the game. So like if it was an incomplete pass, it was like, wow, you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with that pass. And then like if you missed a field goal, it was like, wow, you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with that field goal. Like Madden was really into like agriculture and barns at that point.
But see, now you did just say a lot of the stuff Madden said didn't have much pertinence to anything, but you might be a little young, but that's kind of what John Madden was. Now, that is really just John Madden in a nutshell. Anybody who jokes about John Madden, what's the comedian's name who does a great John Madden?
Is it the guy who does like all the sports impressions?
Yeah.
The George Bush and stuff?
Yeah.
What's his... Fuck, I know who you're talking about, though.
Yeah, and it's killing whoever's watching this. I'm sorry. You can yell it out at us, and we know who you're talking about. Yell it at the screen,
Wait,
please.
Let's do like a Dora thing. Like, do you know the name of the person who imitates Madden? Muy bien.
Oh, I'm so getting a copyright strike.
That was the most infuriating shit when I was little watching Dora. Like, it's right there, you asshole. That and like how agreeable of a mugger Swiper was. Oh. Like he was so cool about just being like told, don't steal from us, and you'd be like, shit.
Oh man, you got me. I'm probably gonna do this again later, but you got me this time. Just don't tell them swiper, no swiping, right?
Like it gave children everywhere a very skewed and dangerous image of what muggers are gonna be like.
Yeah, if you tell a mugger no mugging, it's not gonna work like that. No, he's gonna stab you.
You're walking around North Philly, like pulls a gun, he's not gonna be agreeable.
No, he's really not.
Oh man. But yeah, that's what Madden. So what's his name though? The guy. It's like something vaguely Italian or whatever. But
I know. Keep yelling it at your screens, guys. It's not gonna help us. Oh. And we put our phones all away. No, Frank
Caliendo.
There it is.
Yes.
Okay, we got it, guys. I knew it. We got it. See, yeah, Frank Caliendo. There we go.
Now we need to retrace our steps like Dora.
Man.
We started at the circles. We went on to Madden, and now we're here.
And we're still lost, like every other one of my podcasts.
I have an illegal exotic pet. It's a monkey. It's Boots. Dress him up.
Oh, I thought we were going into you more now. And you're like,
no.
Oh shit, you got an illegal pet. Sweet, let's get into this more.
I wish.
Any good pets?
The only pet I've ever had is a hermit crab, which is the worst pet. Don't ever get a hermit crab. It's a terrible pet. Like, my dad is allergic to cats, and my mom thinks that all dogs do is poop. So, like, she hates that about dogs, which, I mean, everybody poops. Any kid knows that.
Yeah.
But, like,
it's in the book.
Exactly. So this is a classy podcast about literature.
Yeah, we've taken it up a step, guys. Remember that.
But yeah, so we got a hermit crab at like a home and school fair, and we didn't know if it was dead for like half a year. So we just kept feeding it, and it would stay in the same place. Like, we didn't know if it was nocturnal. Like, we'd keep feeding it. Water that we put in might have been evaporating, might have been like drunk up by the hermit crab, but like after like a year and a half of no movement, we eventually like buried it in the backyard. But like we might have just had a dead hermit crab in a cage in our kitchen for like a year and a half. just so that was my experience with pets.
And the sad part is, you could have just bought a shell and done the same goddamn thing.
We definitely could have.
It's like, yeah, it's a hermit crab over there. He doesn't move a whole lot. And you could just tell everybody you got a hermit crab. You could glue it to the side of the cage. Like, oh yeah, he sticks to the side every so often, climbs up, and just Velcro it onto it. Just moving around.
Probably would have been less gross and more sanitary. But yeah, that's my only experience with pets.
Oh, man.
Cats love me, though, so I wish my dad wasn't allergic. I'm slightly allergic to cats, like if I touch my eye with them. Yeah. So, like, I just can't rub them on my eyeballs.
Yeah, most people, you shouldn't do that with a cat anyway.
Just frowned upon in the feline community. But, like, cats love me. I don't know. I have, like, limp wrists when I pet, and they love that for some reason.
Oh, yeah. Well, because they don't like the people who are, like, pet them like 2-year-olds. Get it! They don't like that. No. You're soft with a cat. They're like, oh, cool. They're smaller than we are. You know, you touch a human like that, that's like, okay, that's normal, but the cat's this big.
Yeah, but I have, like, the wrist of, like, an effeminate Bond villain. Just... it's creepy. But like cats love it.
That's why the cat doesn't move in all the Bond or bad guy movies. That's the Dr. Claw. His cat never moves. He's just petting that cat, and he's got that big ugly claw on. But he's like, yeah, and it still doesn't move. So that tells you something. That's what the cats want. Yeah.
How about you? I know you have a cat. Have you ever had any other?
Yeah, no, I've actually just pretty much had all cats. Mostly for my schedule. Even when I've had this house, it's been. You know, I'm busy and, you know, doing especially like High Note and, you know, helping with +2 comedy podcast. I'm rarely home. And with my wife barely being home, she works a different schedule than me. It's like we can't have a dog. Yeah. And I would feel awful with a dog like that because if I go to High Note, that dog's going to be sitting in the cage if my wife's working a double. I don't want to leave a dog wandering around. They can't go out between the hours of 9 and... I get home from that at 11. A dog's gonna sit inside for 14 hours? No, I'd get nailed for cruelty as well. I should. Yeah. So
that's the cool thing about like cats and dead hermit crabs. They're really independent, low maintenance pets.
Yeah, my cat pooped while we were sitting here. She went right down the little door over there to the basement, and she went down there and she pooped. There we go. I didn't have to do anything.
That makes 2 of us.
Oh, is that what that was?